We're gonna get into 9 keys for a successful relationship, specifically for a high-performing man. So this is coming from a guy who's been in a relationship for 9 years. We've been thriving, but we've been through it all. Like, we have 2 young kids. We lived abroad. We came back to the US. My wife's also an entrepreneur, so we've had to navigate that. We've had to navigate masculine and feminine dynamics. We've been through the shitter, and I'm coming out the other side. I wanna share with you how we've been able to sustain things and actually grow and improve the relationship over time. And I think some of these tips are gonna be useful to you. So you have to first off understand that as a high performer, you're gonna have a different type of relationship. And so I'm speaking to you. And you, I'm assuming, are someone who's similar to the clients I work with, professional athletes, high-performing executives, business owners, okay? Because for you, your career is such a big part of your life that you need to find ways to create more ease and just peace in your relationship so it can be a stable foundation for everything you're doing in your career. So the number one thing I need to tell you right now is that you need to stop caring about what anyone thinks about your relationship. You need to stop trying to compare your relationship, whether it's to your own families or to anyone else. Stop thinking about how your relationship matches up against others, because you have a very specific scenario in your relationship. You need to create a very specific vision to make that relationship thrive. All right, so here we go. The first one. Now this is gonna sound very counterintuitive, especially for men, because we like to solve problems with our logic and brain. But the first one is to learn to fight with your feelings and not your logic. Hear me out on this one. You're gonna use a technique called authentic relating, because ultimately what you and your partner want is to find common ground together. Whenever you do that, you'll be able to find a solution forward. The reason why a lot of couples stay in this constant argument, tension, resentment is because they're trying to take their perception of the world and get the other person to agree with it. Now, oftentimes that just doesn't happen, and it won't happen. But what can happen is that you guys come to a mutual place of understanding around how each other are feeling. So this is what it looks like. You're just gonna fully give your partner an opportunity, and I would sit down, light a candle, make a little ceremony for this, 30 minutes to an hour, say, I want you to share with me exactly how you're feeling. Don't try to rebuttal them. Don't act like this is a court case where you need to build your case right back against them. Instead, just sit there, listen, allow yourself to receive and accept how they feel. Then they have to do the same thing. You're gonna share how you feel. You're not blaming, you're not coming up with rational arguments, you're just sharing how you feel. Once you guys both are able to go back and forth, just sharing your feelings without defending yourself, I promise you, this sounds paradoxical, you will find common ground because you both want the same thing. You want to be heard and you want to be loved. And once you find that common ground after clearing out all the emotions, you're gonna find a rational path forward. So once you've done that, you're able to move in a much more flowy way in your relationship. I don't know what I was trying to say there. I'm just trying to transition to the next point. Sorry, guys. So the second one is you need to work on yourself and not them. Now, oftentimes we get into a relationship and then we're seeing our partner as this project. We're like, all right, I want you to be better at this. I want you to do more of that. Don't do that, right? That causes resentment because you're like, why aren't you being how I want you to be? Okay, you need to do one or two things. One, you need to look at yourself, because your relationship is usually a mirror for yourself. Whatever you want them to be more of, you need to be more of, right? If you want them to take better care of themselves physically, you need to take better care of yourself physically. If you want them to be more kind or understanding, you need to be more kind and understanding. So whatever your trigger is with them, understand that it's a mirror for you. And I want you to go deeper into yourself instead of trying to work on or fix them, okay? Now, if you do that and you're constantly working on yourself and you feel like, you know what, my partner's just not changing at all, well, it might be time to leave that relationship, and that's okay. That's a best case scenario because you're already gonna be showing up as the best version of yourself. You will attract in a partner who is better fit for you. All right, next up, embrace your differences. So in my relationship, my wife is from Medellin, Colombia. I was born in New York and then lived in Eugene, Oregon. Like, completely different cultures, completely different preferences in many ways. We just see the world differently, and I don't try to change her and she doesn't try to change me, right? Obviously, we don't always want to listen to the same music or watch the same movies or want to eat the same foods, but we line up on the things that matter most. And so I want you to just clear your mind of like needing to find this like perfect partner where you agree on everything, you have all the same preferences. That's actually not as important. The next thing I'm gonna share is very important. And the next key to success is that you actually line up on the big things. So the big things are, how do you wanna treat your husband or wife in the relationship? Like, what is that dynamic you want to create? Do you agree on that, right? How do you want to live your lives? How do you want to be in your careers? Do one of you want to be a stay-at-home parent? The other one wants to be working. You need to figure out these dynamics. How do you want to parent your kids? How do you want to treat your health, right? So all these big things, these pillars are what matter most. It's not the small preferences, it's the big pillars. And so I recommend before you go too deep into a relationship is you identify what those big pillars are for you and make sure your values and your standards align. Now, as your relationship goes on, of course, things will change. You're not always going to have the same viewpoints on things as you evolve. But that's a beautiful part of the process is the goal is to evolve with your partner. And if you're evolving apart from one another, that's okay too. Don't put pressure on it and need things to go a certain way. Allow it to unfold as it needs to. So the next thing was a huge thing for me. I grew up with a father that was more in the feminine role in our household. Like he was definitely masculine in some ways. Like he was working, so was my mom. But I just learned to be more of like a feminine man. And in my 20s, I became a big pothead and I became even more passive. And I got into this more just like passive, go with the flow. Now, once we had kids, this created a big issue because we needed an authority in the house. And my wife grew up in a household where her dad was completely outside the picture a lot of times and he wasn't taking responsibility. So she saw modeled that her mom needed to step up and be in the masculine. So we both were modeling the wrong thing that was creating a dynamic of resentment, especially when we had kids and things became more pressurized and there was just more responsibility. And so the biggest thing we did was I stepped into my masculine, and that's a lot of actions. I can get into that in another video. Of course, many of you read the book or heard about it, Way of the Superior Man. They talk quite a bit about these concepts in there. But you need to understand that the gender roles are very important. You need to figure those out, and those dynamics need to be fully stepped into. Not just you as a man in your career, but you as a man at home, leading, right? Being the authority. Make your wife feel safe so she can actually surrender to your leadership. It's not just about providing financially, it's also about providing emotional safety through the way that you can deal with conflict and the way you show up in the house. So really master and find and lean into those masculine and feminine dynamics. Those are gonna be really key to your success. So the next one is making your relationship the #1 priority. And I say this because as a high achiever, as a high performing man who's going after and crushing in the world, if you have a toxic relationship, it is going to drain your biological battery and hold you down and hold you back and create so much unnecessary drama and conflict in your life. And you just won't be able to enjoy everything else you're doing. So that's why your relationship needs to be #1. You need to invest into that. So some things that I recommend and I do with my wife is #1, we plan weekly date nights or weekly dates. We go out on dates. We get a nanny in to take care and we go out and create special time to bond with one another and keep that sexual romantic polarity going. The other thing we do is we create this weekly meeting where we really just share our feelings with one another. We air things out that's built up in the last week. We practice gratitude for all the things and the blessings we have in our life. And we create a vision for where are we going together. We literally visualize it and feel into it because a lot of times as high performing men, we know where we want to go. But if we're not letting our wife in on that, she's gonna feel a little bit left out and it may cause conflict. So let her into the vision. Allow her to co-create it with you so she feels like even if she's not on the road with you when you're doing business, she is co-creating with you when she's at home taking her responsibility and doing what she needs to do to fulfill that vision. And then finally, incorporating prayer, whether you believe in God or any other higher power, making sure that that higher power comes in and creates a more sacred relationship between you and your partner. So all those things will help keep your relationship #1. The next thing is never stop growing. Now this may sound kind of like woo-woo, oh yeah, woo-woo, we never stop growing, be the best version of yourself. But the truth is, this is how you actually create more polarity and interest and curiosity and fun and excitement in your relationship is by you as an individual, continue to work on yourself. learn, grow, learn new things. You know, for me, I work with a coach. We do plant medicine ceremonies from time to time. We travel to new places, have new experiences. Continue to do what you can to grow, encourage your partner to do the same, even give them a budget to invest into themselves to continue to grow, because you're gonna evolve into more interesting people. And as you do, it's gonna create more spark in the relationship, and it's just gonna be a better relationship overall. Next thing I really recommend is don't be afraid to change everything, right? When we had kids, we went from kind of like almost like nomad living. We're living down in South America, we're moving around the US, and then we had to create stability. And we kind of threw out the old dynamic. And I used to, like I said, be more of like a go with the flow stoner, and I completely quit weed and became just like a dude who was just locked in and leading our family. And I'm not demonizing weed or anything else. I think you need to find your own relationships with all the plant medicines and all the substances and food and everything out there. It's a whole other discussion, but what I wanted to share is that for me, in my relationship, we needed to completely shift the dynamic and throw away a lot of the way that we were living before to enter into the new season of life. So don't be afraid to let the old die to enter into a new season of life. And sometimes you just have to sit down and acknowledge and even grieve the old season so you can bring about the new one. The final thing is don't love your partner unconditionally. You guys need to have values and standards that you're holding each other to, right? Not saying like they need to be something for you necessarily, they need to be it for themselves. So if they're not showing up as their best self, if they're not showing up as their most authentic self, if they're not showing up in the world being who they need to be, then they don't deserve to be with you. Now this may sound a little harsh, but you don't owe them anything. You have to understand this. They're not your kids. You do owe your kids everything. Your kids get unconditional love. Your romantic partner needs that conditionality to it because it makes you both continue to buy in and day out so you can be together over the long term instead of like putting your relationship on the back burner and being like, oh yeah, this is something I just take for granted. So continue to invest into yourselves and being honest, loving, and authentic to yourself so you can be that for your partner. And that's how you won't even have to think about, oh, what's gonna be the future of our relationship. It's gonna continue to just unfold in a beautiful way for you. And really in my relationship with my wife, we've never put any pressure on it. We've been very just go with the flow with every season of life, from like, okay, let's get married now. It wasn't like a big decision. It was just the next step in the rational progression of our relationship. Let's have children now. Yes, we just wanted to do it. We're always aligned. Yes, let's move back to the United States. Yes, let's move to Miami, Florida, where we are now. We've always just been in coherence, and so things have flowed incredibly well. And I really believe it comes down to those 9 keys that I just shared with you. So if these have been impactful and you would like to get a coach to help guide you through some of these and help you go deeper into yourself, I'm gonna gift you a free discovery coaching call. You can apply for this in the description below. The first line, click on that link and you can reach out to me, and I'm happy to take you through some practices to understand how you can be a better man in your relationship. That's gonna lead to a domino effect of being better in your career, in your work relationships, in your own health, and your life in general. All right, so thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to connecting with some of you soon.